just want to say good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on Facebook Live. And we have a very special guest today, CEO of Rapido Trains, Jason Shron. And Jason's going to be giving us a nice tour of the Rapido facility, and we'll talk about some new products. And Jason is very dynamic and always exciting and entertaining, so it should be a live, action-packed film. So make sure you tune in, and thank you guys for joining us. So grab a cup of coffee and enjoy. So how's it going, Jason?
Very good, though it's quite loud out here. We're outside our offices. We're in Markham, Ontario, which is a suburb of Toronto. It's a beautiful day. Here's our office over here. We have these 2 units. Check out the wibbly sign. And the heat and humidity has wreaked havoc with our logo and our sign, but what can you do? So come on in. Actually, you see that we've got the big train up there. We regularly get people trying to buy train tickets. Bus tickets, too, a lot.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we send them away. Josh is on camera behind me. Josh, say hi to everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Josh.
All right, so here's our lounge area. This is where people come in. And I'll close the blue door. Blue door is normally closed. So when people come into Rapido, they've got the exterior of a Via train over here, Via Rail Canada, blue and yellow, the old stuff from the 70s and 80s, just the stuff like in my basement. And then we've sort of made exterior and interior all in one. We've got the train seats over here, also coming from original Via trains. These 2 were found in some guy's yard out in Western Canada. They've been sitting outside for 10 years. We cleaned them up. And these ones came out of a car called a Tempo, which is a Canadian car that was later used on the Denver Rio Grande ski train. Anyway, so so you come in here to our area. Jordan has currently got Janet with him back there. He's more than just a receptionist, you know. But we even put a little sort of the ticket wicket, and it doesn't help stop people from asking for train tickets because they you know, we have a bell in case he's not here. I actually had a different bell. But we found it was too loud.
It actually, I could see why people get it mixed up.
Yeah,
I could see people asking for tickets.
Anyway, so we've got the original Dutch doors here on our pretend Via train, and we had to put this here. So when our plan for the new office, we moved in here a couple years ago, and we designed it. You know, it was one of the things where they teared it down and they designed it to our specs. So we designed it like this, because in our old office was very small, and what would happen is people would come in and like from the street, and they just sit down and join our meetings, right? So we're talking about strategy, how we're going to deal with this competitor, how we're going to deal with this new product. We're just talking about new product, and the door would open, and some guy would come in eating his falafel and sit down and join us. So I had to make a new thing when we put the Dutch door here, and it's amazing. It's the blue door, and people don't go past it, okay? Which is wonderful because otherwise people just walk in. And the couple times we've actually left it open, we've just found people wandering in our office thinking, hey, this is cool. I'm wandering in some guy's model train office. So we still love our customers, but we really don't want you wandering in and having lunch with us when we're having a meeting about our future products. I will take you through the blue door. You're allowed through the blue door. So
all right. So make note, if you do visit Rapido, do not pass the blue doors.
Right. Climbing over it is a definite no-no. Okay. So we'll go around this way. We should do something too about. So we're printing out stuff here. We got a new product launch. It's totally secret, and it's coming out. You know, new SW1200 RS, big poster, and some guy said, "Hey, that's cool." So we haven't yet solved entirely the keeping stuff secret from people walk in. This is Jordan's office over here. Good morning. You will notice that train seats tend to propagate in Rapido's office. We don't do anything. They just show up. Okay, so we're convinced that we've put, it's like coat hangers. You put 2 in a cupboard, you close the door, you open it a few hours later, and there's 47 of them, right? That's what happens with train seats in our office. Okay, so these are seats from a LRC first-class car. And then Jordan, of course, screws everybody up because they see he's a big Santa Fe fan. So a lot of people saying, so you're competing with out there, and I see, did you really? No, it's just Jordan's car in front of an F45, so FP45. Excuse me, I don't know, blaspheme. So we lots of train stuff around.
Is Jordan from Canada too?
So everyone here is from Canada. No, I tell a lie. There's one foreigner. One's just
All right.
This is Janet.
Well, hello.
Hi, Janet.
Janet, whenever we post a picture of Janet on our Facebook page, we have a lot of our older customers just sort of drooling on the page and making inappropriate comments. Yeah, so kind of like I was just doing now. Janet takes care of all of our accounting and makes sure we get paid and make sure we pay our bills.
And I work with a bunch of locos.
So
you're welcome.
So Janet is the only Rapido employee who's not a train nerd. And this guy here, he's not part of our presentation, but we can maybe open it up with him too. Anyway, so Janet is, she makes sure that the company runs properly, right? And we're trying to convert her to train nerdness. Okay, so we're working on it.
It's not going too well.
No, it's a problem. But hey, show Jordan's models over here. This is Jordan's used his office as our storage location. So there's like this brass models here. The problem is whenever I want a model that I want to just, hey, what have our competitors done? I just kind of grab Jordan's model and I take it away. And there was one time when he got it back in many little pieces.
Poor Jordan.
Definitely a risk of having your model trains the office. You should learn that, buddy. All right, come on in.
Put a lock on the door.
Yeah. All right, so we have shower room over here because Gareth bikes to the office. You bike to the office, you have a shower. Bathroom over here. Here's our kitchen where Janet is now making Montreal bagel.
Hello.
All right, come on over here, and this is Gareth. Nice to meet you.
Hey, how's it going?
Zoom in on the flag, eh? Okay, so Gareth. Ta-da! Gareth is British.
Hello.
Right, and
Top hole. And all that.
yeah, totally good. What top hole?
Top hole.
Cheerio, Al. Right. So anyway, so he's in control of all of our modern British stuff that we do. So we make a lot of show the class 156 over here.
So this is
And the 92 actually, the N scale 92.
this is the N scale class 92. You see that?
Huh.
The Revolution
Very nice.
train.
Yeah.
And this is the class 156. We're currently in production now for the UK market.
Yeah. So it's he's in charge of all the British stuff, but he's also a big modern freight guy. So he's very much involved in our modern stuff that we do here in North America.
We do modern stuff.
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
Really.
hang on, we do.
What have we got? Oh, right.
For
a
example,
sample of our well car.
Yeah, the 52 foot.
That was one of your cars.
That's one of my cars. Yeah.
But he often has to work with the difficulty of me telling him totally unrealistic expectations. So that one, I believe it was, it has to be super detailed for as little money as possible.
Yes.
We were actually going to use that was part of the Prime Movers line. And we were going to do that. The Prime Movers line was going to be the start of a train set line. And we're actually going to do train sets. And then when we discovered that our customers actually didn't want that. They wanted the super detailed stuff. So we've got two models in the Prime Movers line, and then the Prime Movers line is going to die a sorry death.
We won't miss it.
Exactly. So we're going back to the super detailed stuff. Come on in over here. Is Dan in his office? Dan is in his office. This is Dan Darnell. Dan Darnell has worked with us for a couple of years. He's also a project manager. Gareth's a project manager. Dan's also a project manager, and Dan is responsible for example, the new SW1200S locomotive. Dan was responsible for the bus. He does a lot of the, I guess we'd say, sort of more 20th century stuff. Sort of like, yeah. He's also with Bill working on the Royal Hudson Steam locomotive. Yeah. So Dan, whereas Gareth has got a tremendous experience in the UK industry and in the UK press, Dan has been known in the Canadian mall train business for over 20 years. He used to run a big hobby shop at Train Store George's Trains. He's been a custom builder and modeler for years and years and years and years. So Dan's very well connected. And he came to me a few years ago and said, "Hey, I want to come work here." And I had to think for about 5 seconds and said, "Okay."
Very good.
There's very much a CN theme through Dan's office. Dan and I will compete as to who can get the most nerd. That's the train passing behind our office. I haven't got there yet. Who can be most nerdy in terms of our
nerdy.
So, okay, your office is bright orange, and you have 1970s CN cup glassware everywhere.
That's not nerdy.
Oh, come on.
My wife won't let me put it in the house.
Yeah.
I got to put it somewhere.
You have to embrace your nerdiness. All right. He'll often have his own models in here. People come in and say, "You're doing an S2? Oh my God!" No, it's Dan.
This is kind of like the Google for trains.
Anyways, do we ever use that light box? No.
Yeah, well, kind of. This gives the story.
We have a light box that's supposed to show all different types of lights on our colors, and we use it to store stuff. This is a problem we have actually with model trains. The real situation you have is that the colors, if you take a full-size chip from Canadian Pacific Maroon and you stick it on a model, it will be too dark because a full-size train, but the color scales down. So we have a real difficulty with color sometimes. And also, we've got the fluorescent lights here. This is like cool white here in this space. Most people's layout room have fluorescent light as well. And the daylight is actually looks different. So a model looks different depending on the color of the light. So we've actually ran into trouble where this was back in like 2007. We got a passenger car that was supposed to be gray. We tested it indoors. It looked gray. Then when the delivery came, we went outside and it was beige. We had to make new shelves for hundreds of people. That was a lot of fun. Real fun. All right. So unfortunately, the lawn guys are here today, so that you'll hear buzzing throughout. I don't know what they're trimming back there because there's no trees. This is our green screen over here. Right. So whenever we have a video where one of us shrinks down to HO scale, this is what we do. All right.
Cool.
And
Cool.
Door open. Is that why it's so loud, or is it right outside our door?
Right outside the door.
Okay, so this is where we program decoders. We can program up to 8 decoders at a time. Most of it's done at the EQ factory, but say we have to make a change or we make decoders to sell direct to the public, this is what we use right here. It looks really high tech. I love a photo studio over there. We don't have a fancy photo studio. We're just a small diorama or the model itself on this piece of wood with a piece of plastic on it. It's very easy. So here's our warehouse.
Sounds like it.
That's outside our back door.
Very cool. Very
Isn't
cool.
that awesome?
You get a lot of inspiration.
All right, the lawn guys are too loud. We'll go out there in a minute. So our warehouse is very small, okay? We actually don't have much in the way of inventory. So the boxes you see here, all those boxes, those are actually boxes that we produce retirement gifts for Via Rail Canada, and it's a requirement that we hold on to them for the next 3 years of people retiring. So that stuff's not for sale. If you want to come see our inventory that's for sale, that's it. That's our Rapido Trains Inc. That is our entire inventory. We've got detail parts as well and paint. Showing the paint over there.
Wow.
That's over there, right? That's just one bookcase. But this stuff over here, that's our entire inventory. Okay, so if you want a GMD one, we have 6. That's it. I think these were from direct customers that didn't show up. Otherwise, they were all sold out, right? That's our entire inventory. This stuff was actually for sale before on my personal website, which hasn't been up in 2 years. So we finally added it to the inventory a couple weeks ago. So if you don't include that, it really is just, there's about 25 models here. That's our inventory. So Rapido used to make a lot of extra stuff. And we stopped that in 2010 when the economy fell apart. We had no money, and we had 3,000 cars in our warehouse that nobody wanted. So we changed our policy then where stuff is made to order. So we'll announce the order deadline. We often delay it by a few months afterwards if the model's not ready or our factory is busy. But we do announce the initial order deadline. Then we say we have a final deadline. Like, for example, this SW200 RS locomotive it's a firm deadline because the factory's ready to make it in September. And if we had orders for 2,000 pieces, we'll make 2,010. That's it. Make an extra 10 pieces, 15 pieces.
Wow.
I don't like the idea of having tons of stuff here because if I put money into a warehouse full of stuff, right, then we don't have the money to tool a new locomotive. We don't have the money to tool something else, passenger car, freight car, whatever. Money stuck in inventory is money stuck. It's just stuck. So I'd rather, and this is going to upset a lot of people, but I will tell you this, and I will argue my case to anybody. I would rather sell out and leave 500 people wishing they'd order it than to have 500 on the shelf that nobody wants, right? And we've come a long way from the days back 40 years ago when we just factories would just churn out, we're going to make 1,000 of this and 2,000 of that and 3,000 of that, and hoping people would come by and buy it, right? That doesn't work anymore because the industry has changed. It's not nearly as big as it was in the 1970s, 1980s. You can't take that kind of risk. So we don't. right? So we don't make inventory. So the ordering by the deadline is very important. And I think that by this time now, I mean, Rapido's been on the market now. I started the company 13 years ago. Our first release was 11 years ago. But really the last 5 years is when Rapido's really exploded on the market with a lot of really beautiful models like the Amtrak F40 and the GMD1 locomotive and all that stuff, the New Haven FL9. So I think now we've established that we can make the models. You have faith ordering in advance, but just by seeing the pre-production samples, the YouTube videos or whatever. The people who like to walk into the hobby shop and really just sort of look at something, then come back 2 weeks later, look at it again and then buy it. It's unfortunate that the hobby doesn't accommodate that anymore. But the truth is, the hobby shop owner is looking at how much inventory can I bring in. I can't afford to bring in enough models that guys can come by, look at it, come back a week later, and then finally decide to buy it. And so it's really changed how our hobbies work. You have to have that whole pre-order thing. And it's like a necessary evil. It's not something that we're happy about, but it's just the reality of it. Those 3,000 cars that I couldn't give away, we still occasionally find this was 2010, and we'll get someone say, I just got a baggage car of yours on a really great deal, but it's missing a step. Have you got the right step for it? And it's like, oh, we'll search through our piles of old stuff and see what we can find for you. Yeah, so those 3,000 cars come back to haunt us.
Yeah.
All right, so our test track is over here. And then we've got a little paint shop set up over here for painting samples. Come over here, Josh. This is where Dan Darnell paints all of our samples. Most of our samples are not painted at the factory. They're painted here using most of our own paint. Right, because our new paints are very popular. This is pretty cool. This is my computer from when I was a student back in the 1990s. And we used this when we wanted to print decals. That's my old Alps printer. It's 20 years old. And that's still what we use today to print decals for our samples.
Huh.
It's an antique.
That looks pretty old.
A SCSI cable. This is Josh's office over here, where he's how long you worked here now? 6 months?
About that.
6 months. Josh started. Check out he's got 4 seats, right? So Josh has worked for us for about 6 months, and he's very. And when he started, we thought he would just be helping out and doing shipping and a couple of advertisements and stuff. And he's now become a project manager. He's only been here 6 months. He's now managing the bus project, and he's been managing some more projects coming forward. So Josh. We're very happy with Josh's work. Can you hang on a second? That's Josh, everyone. How's it going? There we go. Okay, this is my office over here. I don't have a corner office. I don't have a window. I'm very happy just to hang out in my 1970s purple seats.
What's the purple for?
Okay, so CN and VIA in 1970s, everything was purple. And check this out. I even wear bell-bottom pants, right? So it goes with the whole thing, right? I got beige old Toronto bus uniforms. But these seats here is a great story. I've always been looking for train parts. I always wanted train seats, and this was still when I was building the train in my basement. And I saw an ad. Someone had train parts for sale. I got a hold of him, and he said, "Oh yeah, we went to Montreal in the '80s, and we were buying stuff. CN and VIA were scrapping cars, and it was all purple." I said, "Oh my God, he's got Club Deluxe first class seats." This was like the way to travel between Toronto and Montreal on the train called the Rapido. Okay, that's where our company's name comes from, the Rapido. It's a train, and the first class seats was called Club Deluxe, and they had these purple seats. So I went to Saginaw, Michigan in dead of winter. We had to use a pick to get into a boxcar, and inside the frozen boxcar was a dozen of these first-class seats piled up. And this is like, but 8 years ago, we finished them 7 years ago, and they're wonderful. So I've got 2 club car seats over here, along with, I painted that when I was in university, and I've put one on casters, and so my desk chair is actually another one of these purple seats. Isn't this amazing?
Very cool.
Yeah, there's my 1940s Northern Electric phone. We actually tied that into our PBX system, so I get calls on this phone. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, and of course, I have a phaser here because, I don't, sometimes if Josh bugs me, if he's in the next office, I phaser him.
Is the painter fired?
No, you're not fired yet. Anyway, this painting here, if anybody is watching this who's got an art background, I'll say if you want to be a model train manufacturer, you spend 10 years studying art. Because I have a fine arts degree in visual arts. I have a master's of art history. And I was doing my PhD in art history in England, and I said, I don't want to do this. I want to make model trains all day. And I abandoned my PhD to start making model trains. So I spent 10 years barking up the wrong tree before starting Rapido. But that was a painting course I took in second year university. And the teacher kept telling me, Jason, you're too tight. You're not doing it right because we're doing a still life, you're painting, collection of stuff. She says, be more free. So I take whatever's left of my palette and I paint an FPA4 from Via Rail Canada, right? She comes back to me and says, that's what I want, Jason. It's free. It's open. And the woman beside me says, it's a train. And I was made to stay after class to paint the stupid violin and the pears. The best painting I ever did. Anyway.
Well, that got you into trains, so that's good.
I've always been into trains. This is Dan's office. Dan is our operations manager. And Dan is, he doesn't really do repairs anymore. So most of these models have been sitting on his desk for how many years? A lot.
Yes.
A lot.
We got a question for Dan. Hold on.
Sure.
Dan, we really need HORS 18s and RSC 14s.
You know, it's funny. I say the same thing to Jason all the time.
Well, if we do the RSC team, we're only doing the red one that pulled the tempo.
Ooh, harsh but fair.
Yes, I know. We agree that those are needed, but no more comment to make. So Dan, he has his models hidden back here.
At least they're hidden.
Yeah, but occasionally I'll need one and sort of grab it and not tell him. You really shouldn't leave your models in the office.
Is that why that one was missing?
There's the LRC. Remember I gave you that? Right. So that's Dan's office. So he, whenever a dealer calls the question, anything like that, Dan handles all of our stores. Rapido very much believes in using your dealer network and buying Rapido models from your dealer. We support our dealer network. So Dan is the one who helps out all the dealers when they have questions. Come in, I'll show you some sample trains, and I'll take you to see the back, which is just, it's like sort of the icing on the cake.
And what city is this, Jason? Steve wants to know.
We are near Toronto, Ontario. We're in a suburb of Toronto.
Okay, great.
Right. So I have to tell you that we did the Spring Creek train show a couple weeks ago, and our samples have been lost by DHL. So the only models we have here, whatever we could find in the back, and our SW1200RS, which Dan Darnell brought back in his hand luggage. But all of our new stuff, our N-scale turbo train, our N-scale 8600 series New Haven coaches, a lot of our the buses, we have all the lit buses, they're all lost somewhere by DHL. So you can imagine I was really happy yesterday, and I wasn't yelling at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've set up a few things around here. So we'll start off by looking at the SW1200RS. Start with these guys. These are dummy models. They actually don't have power in them. The powered model is on its way back. So this is the model we just announced. The SW1200RS is it's a switcher and a road switcher, because that's the idea of the SW for the switcher and RS is for road switcher. So these guys worked all over Canada from the 1950s until, for short lines, they're still working today. And they would pull trains on the main line, but they would also work in the yard. And it looks a lot like a typical, say, SW1200, but they're in various changes, like spotting differences. I mean, the FlexiCoil trucks are one thing. You've got the unique number board arrangement. This is on the CN. It's got the working marker lights at the back and this neat number board headlight arrangement on the front as well. You've also got the radiator shutters, which we provide. If you ever got one of our locomotives before, you know we have a little bag inside with tons and tons of details. So our models come with tons and tons of details. These are hand painted by Dan. They're pre-production samples. But you can see, check out the difference in the CN and the CP. You can tell there's lots of spotting differences, the different stacks, the different headlight assembly, that sort of thing.
He hand painted those?
Dan Darnell hand painted these. That's right.
Really? Wow.
And these are first test samples out of the mold, so a lot of the parts don't fit perfectly. So it's a real challenge to do these early samples. Another early sample here, which I have on the track, because people complain we don't make some. Whenever we announce a bus, people say, "Hey, it's not a train." This is our new look bus, and we're really, really proud about this one because never before has a bus been treated with that kind of detail that's in a model train. So things like we'll have, the stanchions, the grab handles inside are all separate metal parts. They actually connect the electricity from the circuit board underneath to the lighting on top. You've got the accurate window. This is an early sample. It's missing the top two window panes, but still, as you can see, it's going to have working headlights. We've got different mirrors that we've tooled. We've got different roof details that we've tooled. We've got different bumpers that we tooled. This is the original stainless bumper, but we've also got the Firestone bumpers and the water junk bumpers. And check this out. There's another train back there. We got posable steerable front wheels, right? So this is going to look really, really nice on your layout or in the display case. And the order deadline for this just passed, but I think that we can still take orders for a bit longer because we haven't started production yet. Even little things like there's an etched metal strip on top. So if your bus had those little standy windows on top, we've got a part for that. If it's got a plain thing on top, there's a plain etch, right? So it's that kind of little detail that we brought into models. And the thing about it, I don't know if you can see it here, but if you look in the new look bus, it's got a very round shape, sort of very round profile, right? And if you look at every existing model of new look bus, number one, there's no rivets. We've got thousands of them. But number two, look at that round shape. We did a 3D scan of the original bus to get that round shape and all these compound curves. So, you know that the shape is right when you do a 3D scan. It's amazing. We didn't realize how round the bus was. You don't get that from 2D drawings. I want to show you over here.
Yeah, Jason, just one quick question on the bus. Do you see people, because you actually make it two ways, with the lights and also without the lights. Yes. Are people seem to be ordering one way or another?
Yeah, I'd say the deluxe version outsells the regular about 60-40.
Really? Okay. Wow.
People love the idea of having the lights. So you've got two wires coming out the bottom of the bus that goes through your bench work, and then any 12-volt power supply or even a 9-volt battery, and you get your lights on. Right?
That's great.
It's really, you've got the front, the headlights, you've got the tail lights, then the interior light, the destination sign lights up. It's really neat. We include decals in the box with all different route numbers, right, for the different bus liveries that we're doing. The buses, here's something interesting. The response in the model train community has been better than expected. When we bring the bus to a show, most people make a beeline for the bus. They ignore all the trains and they go straight to the bus.
Wow. Okay.
And we've sold about 25% more than we expected in our first run.
Wow.
But almost no sales to the diecast and car stores. So the model train guys are saying, we know Rapido, we know what they can do, so we're going to order this bus. But the diecast guys are saying, well, we don't know who this company is, and their bus is $10, $20 more expensive, so we're not going to order that many.
Right.
So it's a challenge for us to get known outside the model train world. And actually, we're launching our first British bus this weekend in England. And that's, again, a challenge for us because the model train guys in England know who we are, and model car and bus guys have no idea. So that's going to be a real challenge for us. So, it's hard. We're so well known in this one industry, but once you go aside, we're a total unknown, right?
Right.
We're not like a Lionel, which is a name that everyone recognizes, right? We're really just known, and this is the same for almost every model train manufacturer. We're all just known in the model train industry, nowhere else.
Right. But so you're a superstar inside the train industry.
There's a lot of big fish in a very small pond. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, there you go.
This is our mid-train dome. This is the same dome car we released with the Canadians several years ago. This particular one is from my own collection because we have our samples are on the way back from were lost somewhere. So I brought this from my basement this morning. And I brought an example of a dome from another manufacturer here just to show the comparison between a Rapido model and a competitor's model. And the best place that a comparison, I mean, there's the finish, obviously. We've got a real beautiful stainless steel finish on our models, which is it's unique. You actually have to heat the models to a specific temperature to get that finish. But this is where you see the difference really shows off between Rapido and the competitor. And it's the same way with us and most of our competitors. So I really see a passenger car as a work of art, and all the stuff that makes a passenger car work, such as, I can take you through it, such as the Jenna motor, the axle-driven Jenna motor, such as the two air compressors, the AC condenser unit, the AC compressors, such as that's the water rating reservoir, that's the main combined reservoir for the D22 brake equipment, there's the main junction box, that is the alternator for the fluorescent lights. All this stuff underneath is what makes a passenger car work. And so just like if you're having a model of a Jaguar, you expect the hood to open up to have the Jaguar engine inside. having this kind of stuff on your model is really, really important to me, right? So when you compare that, the way that undercarriage equipment's been mostly treated up until now and still treated by our competitors, and you look at ours, that just shows you the detail difference level, right? And obviously that detail difference is visible inside too. We often have multicolored interiors. We have antimacassars printed on the seats. This one's a Via era, so there's no antimacassars on this one because the real one didn't have it. We often have window blinds at random heights. All that kind of stuff is all about, recreating a train in miniature as accurately as possible. That's really, really, really important. And yes, if we brought out a model with, say, 25% more detail than this, we would be able to sell probably more, and we'd be able to sell cheaper. We bring out a model with this detail level because I just wouldn't be happy if there's any other way, right? I like to know that my bathroom sink has a faucet on it, okay? Because the real one did, so the model should too. Our turbo train's a perfect example. There's all this stuff inside that there were no windows in the bathroom. You couldn't see it, but the sink had a faucet. That was really important.
Jason, just want to let you know the N-scale turbo train, we sent out an email announcing it, and the orders are ridiculous. They're like, they're flowing in. People, it's going to be your home run of the year. People really love the idea, and I don't think it's ever been done in N-scale before.
It was done by the Bachmann brothers in 1969.
Oh, wow. Okay.
With a power pack and some track.
Way before my time, I was born.
Here's the thing. So we announced that it was going to be a provisional announcement. So we have this early bird discount if people order by September 15th. And we said that it will look at the orders by then. And if they are where they should be, then we're going to go ahead and cut the tooling so that we'll bring it out in 2018. For us too, our orders are so through the roof. There is no question in my mind the turbo train will happen in N-scale by us, and it will be a 2018 release. Because we were worried about the price. The price, in our view, is too high. We would love for it to be lower, but we looked at our costs, and that was the lowest we could do it. Especially because the sound one has 2 decoders and 2 speakers in it. But yeah, it's flying off the shelves. The people are ordering it in large. I'd say that since we launched it on June 26th, in terms of dollar value, 75% of our orders since then direct have been turbo trains. The stores have been ordering the SW1200 RS. So the two projects really seem to complement each other well. We've got a really high profile in-scale model and a really high profile HL model. And there's a lot of excitement. So we did okay on that one. But now, of course, we set the bar so high that at our dealer open house next year, the guys said they want to launch a complete new line of locomotives, right? So that means we have to design it and tool it in the next 11 months. I'm not too excited. It's going to be a headache. Before we move on for the trains, this is our new GMD1 locomotive. These are all sold out, except for the handful that's sitting back there. So I'm going to fire up. So to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that we do, we produced a GMD1 locomotive in 2015. And in 2015, it was not a rebuilt locomotive. So we went to record a real GMD1 hauling freight cars so we can get the thing under load. And then when we were doing the rebuilt GMD1s, we had to go and record a rebuilt GMD. We actually recorded a rebuilt SW1200RS, which has this exact same hood and prime mover, so the sound's the same. And again, we hauled freight cars, and then the railroad contacted us and said, because we had the brakes on so much to give it more load, we flattened all the wheels on the freight cars. They were not happy with us. But I'll just leave it at that. So our models, even though it's the same engine, the prime mover was rebuilt, so we went and re-recorded the sounds again, okay? Come over to the front here, Josh. I think one of the best features of this guy is the ditch lights, okay? So these, if you can look at them, they are tall stock ditch lights, well, medium stock ditch lights. The ditch lights are actually raised on stalks. And what manufacturers have always done is they put LEDs underneath and have what's called a plastic lightweight coming up with the light. We're not happy with that because it's not bright enough. So we've actually got a little tiny LED inside the ditch light. Just like you would do if you were scratch building or kit bashing, we've got a little LED inside the ditch light. And we actually do sell these ditch lights separately, though we haven't announced them yet. We have about 500 in the back. We haven't yet sent out the announcement, put them on our website. But we do sell these separately. It's the LEDs inside the ditch light, and the wires go into the frame and go back up to the decoder, right? So you get a really, really bright light, just like real ditch lights. And our new Dash 8 has the same idea, but they're even taller. And I think it's the first really well done tall stock ditch lights on the market. But it does require a lot more time to assemble and more money. We're not all about making money here. If we were all about making money, we could make far less detailed models and make more money on them. But it's all about bringing out this kind of detail for our customers. And for us, really, because we're all modelers here. Josh is a modeler, Jordan, Dan, Gareth, and Bill in Connecticut, we're all modelers. I love that. All right.
And that's the ESU Loc sound?
That's ESU lock sound with the sounds that we recorded ourselves. And all of our engines we record under load. So for the FP9A locomotive, we hauled another FP9A up a 2% grade. For the FPA4 locomotive, we hauled another FPA4 up a 2% grade. For our GMD1, we hauled 12 grain hoppers. For this GMD1 recording, we hauled 3 full ballast hoppers with their brakes on. That's the kind of stuff we do because a model sounds different when it's under load, like a locomotive, and the model has to recreate that. So if you buy our first run GMD1 and you just rev it up to notch 8, you'll hear a lot of wheel slip because that's what we heard when we were recording it.
Yeah, Jason, I'm getting a lot of requests for the Dash 8 40 CMs.
The Dash 8s are the ones that are currently lost by DHL, our samples.
But I guess when they're coming out and due.
Those are in production now. They'll be here in the fall.
Oh, okay, great,
okay.
Great.
All right, come on back here. Hopefully we'll get another train. Well, I brought a special treat for you today. I say Josh brought it in preparation for this meeting. All right, so this is the Rapido bus.
That's you actually have your own bus.
I have my own bus. 7 new look TDH 5303. It's a GM 6371.
Oh my God.
I'll take you around. So when we originally got it, it was a Calgary transit bus that had been used for a race course in Calgary for many, many years. We took it to a bus rebuilder and paint shop in Calgary. He was retiring, and this was his last project, and he put all his love and attention into it. So we have a beautiful new paint job, recreating the Toronto 1960s to 80s paint job. I love this thing. There's the beauty. GM 6371, Allison transmission. Runs like a dream.
I can't believe you actually have a bus. Do you pick up all the employees and take them to work?
So, yes, I'm a train nut. Rapido has its own RDC, which we save from the scrapper. We have a sleeping car. The sleeping car of our 3 mass transit vehicles, the sleeping car is the money pit. The RDC, because of lots of donors, is able to cover its costs. The bus is very inexpensive relatively. The sleeping car, that's a money pit. That's actually the biggest job of the 3. The one that has the least amount of PR value is the one that's costing us the most. But I took this bus, or a very similar style bus, to school every day as a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a bus driver. So the bus model that we're doing, a slightly different version, is very dear to my heart. And it's funny, I've always wanted a bus. I tried to buy one when I was 18 from the TTC, but I had no money. I had enough for the bus. I had no money for insurance, no money for parts, no money, no storage ability. So now an opportunity came up to buy this bus, and it was very, very affordable. I won't say how much I paid for it. But we're sitting at the dinner table. We're at my parents' house, and my wife turns to my mother and says, "Would you believe he's going to buy an old transit bus?" And my mother turns to my wife and says, "Actually, he's always wanted to drive a bus." Right? So Dan Darnell and I went, and we got our bus driving licenses, and so we can both drive the bus now. So I'm going to take you for a drive.
Wow, this is amazing.
on in. So this is an original Calgary Transit interior. It's a very typical bus interior, but it's in beautiful condition. You can see that, right? We keep the back doors blocked so nobody can help themselves in to come sleep in our bus. The windows all still open. Oh, it's great. I used to always sit on the Toronto buses in that back corner. Yeah, that was always my spot whenever I was going anywhere.
I used to always sit in the driver's seat.
Yeah, so Josh didn't have to get his bus license because Josh spent 9 years as a TTC driver. Okay, so he drove buses and streetcars all over Toronto. So he knows when it comes to this bus.
And at first he didn't believe I could drive a bus.
Meanwhile, the challenge is going to be getting into gear. But, you know, we're in Canada, so it's really cold here, except for now, but in the wintertime. We got this bus started at minus 10 degrees Celsius. What is that in Fahrenheit? Really, really cold.
I'm a millennial. I don't know conversions to Fahrenheit.
But
That's right.
I'm not gonna like it. Hey, only 2 tries.
I must have warmed it up for you.
All right, so we'll take you around the block here.
Seatbelts first, Jason.
1967 new look bus. Whenever I take this thing home, I always get strange looks from the neighbors when there's a 1967 bus parked outside my house.
I'm sure they love you.
Here we go over CN's York subdivision. Check out the tracks. So the guys here, whenever there's a train going by, there's this mad blur of color past my office as everybody runs to go have a look at the train. And no work gets done when trains are going by. Whenever I'm driving this thing in Toronto, it never fails. No matter what I have up on the destination sign, people, as they see me, they come to try and get on the bus. One guy had stopped at a red light, and this guy, he comes up to my door, and he's standing there, and he's knocking. It's like, dude, don't you see it's a 50-year-old bus?
It could be a new line of business.
No, they don't clue in. So I have to say, if anybody's thought about getting a bus driving license, they've always wanted to, and they're afraid that, you know, when they finally do get their bus driving license, it's not going to live up to their expectations. Let me tell you something. It absolutely lives up to your expectations. It's a dream come true. The best part about it is that I don't have to, you know, clock in at 4 o'clock in the morning. What's the earliest you started, John?
3:30.
3:30 a.m. So
Wow.
we don't have to. Whenever, and Josh will sometimes get in touch with me and say, "Hey, I'm just taking the bus out for a few hours on a weekend." He just wants to drive it, and so he does. It's got manual steering, and it's 10 tons and 40 feet long. So you can imagine that when that you cannot dry steer this thing. It's totally impossible. Dry steering is impossible with this guy, because that means when you try and steer it when you're not moving, because you just can't. So my first time driving it, I no exaggeration, pulling out of the bus yard. I had my bus license, but I only ever driven a school bus before, and we came within 2 inches of totally taking off the side of a parked car. And I had no idea what to expect. And of course, because we're Rapido, we caught that all for posterity. So if you watch our cross-Canada adventure on the bus, you can see me almost hitting a car.
So this really was your inspiration for the bus and HO scale.
So simply put, because I've always loved these buses, I was just disappointed that there was never done a bus that got it right. But there's also the shape, there's also the detail. detail level. If you look at a bus, it's all riveted construction. There are thousands of rivets on this bus. And why is it that bus models tend to be die cast with way too much paint on them because they're metal and that's the only way you get the paint to adhere, right? It's got way too much paint on it. It's the detail level is like 1982. Why can't we have a bus model that's of the same level of detail as our train models? And we just found that people, like, it had never been done before. We were really shocked that no one had ever done a bus model in that level of detail, and so we just felt we had to fulfill that need, really. There we go. We're back in the office. Let's go. Wait, open the door. Ta-ra!
Wild.
So that's our bus. So people think that we're putting it on here. We're not. I'm really backlit, right? So let me go over here. So people think that we're putting this stuff on, and I mean, really, we're not. So the thing about Rapido is that it's all genuine. All of us at Rapido are obsessed with trains. The full-size VRL train car I built in my basement took 4.5 years, and it wasn't me hiring a contractor. It was me, with Dan's help, doing it ourselves. That was done out of love for trains. I think people, they get cynical, right? And they think everything's marketing ploy, everything's a load of baloney, right? Trust me. We didn't have to buy this bus. We would sell just as many buses had we not bought this bus. But making a model bus was just the excuse I needed. We got to fulfill my lifelong dream of having a bus. And another complaint that we often get is we'll have people saying, you're wasting all your money on buses and that, or full-size trains, and that's why your models are so expensive. I will tell you right now that the cost of the RDC, the sleeping car, and the bus together is about the tooling cost of one freight car. So we're not raising our prices just to play with our toys. We genuinely love this stuff. And we feel that we're preserving a piece of history while having a lot of fun. It's the fun part is the most important thing, right? You can see me. I was happier than a pig in poop when I was driving that thing. I love driving that bus. My kids love it's wonderful. All right, so let's go back inside and figure we can just answer any more questions that your customers have. And then that's basically for the tour of Rapido.
That's great, Jason. Actually, Drew had a great suggestion. You should Uber in the bus.
Okay, so our insurance, which already costs way too much, us from paying passengers on the bus, unfortunately. So I can take you around for free, but I can't take you for money on the bus.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's go to my office, and just if you have more questions, we'll sign off there, okay?
Yep, that would be great. Yeah, I got a bunch of questions for you, so.
Sure. Jordan? Can you just button up the bus, please? It's all, yeah. Okay, thanks, Dan. I was going to send Jordan into it, but seeing as you can drive it, it makes more sense. Why? No, just leave it there. Just button it up. No, forget it, Jordan. Dan's going to do it. Why don't you wants to do it? All right, so what can I do for you in terms of questions?
All right, so Andrew, he wants to know, are there plans to make the ONL Northlander?
Okay, honestly, no. Roco did a really nice one of it. The only thing that we would be able to do is add an F7. Is it FP7 on the front? Yeah, FP7 on the front. And it wouldn't be worth tooling the entire train again because the Roco version is really gorgeous. So I think that, unfortunately, no.
Okay. Donis.
Hey, if he's talking about a more modern Northlander, I've certainly got my eye on doing tempo coaches, which are similar to the ones that we use on Northlanders. That maybe we could do something close one day.
Okay. Donis wants to know any switch machines or more onto switch machines.
So we announced these 2 years ago. We actually made a full. Let's take them to the back and show them what's left of the switch machines, just so you know it's not vaporware. We made a full run of switch machines. And then we decided that we weren't happy with their long-term stability. Look here. These bins here are all the guts of all those switch machines that we made. Thousands of switch machines that we when they came in, and we realized that. So we produced them. We sent a whole bunch of them to be tested by people. And the first initial results of the test were very positive. So we did production. And then we got people saying, long-term, guys, you have some issues with reliability. So we junked the entire run. 3,500, I think it's 4,500 switch machines, all junked because I wasn't happy.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah, absolutely. We want to be number 2, okay? Tortoise is going to own the switch machine market for the rest of eternity. We want to be number 2, okay?
Okay.
They can skip number 1. We want number 2. If we were going to have a model that failed after 6 months, we could not be number 2 because people would never buy them again.
Right.
So those all got junked. We've completely redesigned the guts, and the new production is in the middle. It's happening right now, and we will have new switch machines in September. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Switch hands are here, but the switch machines will be here in September. So the uncouplers are here too, by the way. We have the uncouplers in stock.
Very nice. Sid is asking about a CP1293 in HO.
CP1293.
I'm sorry?
5 Series.
Isn't 1293 as a straight Hudson? No.
No, Light Pacific.
Oh, Light Pacific. When it comes to bringing out the steam engines, this is our biggest. It's a real challenge for us. So the first one is the Royal Hudson. That was in tooling and was almost done, and then we stopped the tooling process about 3 months ago because we hired a new engineer at our LRC factory named Mr. Fu. Mr. Fu, it's a long process to get to answer. Mr. Fu worked for a company called Cater for many years, designing steam engines, and he said you have some flaws in your design of your steam engine, your Royal Hudson, that we need to fix immediately. And the tooling is still early enough that we can fix it a little bit less expensive. So we stopped the tooling. Mr. Fu, with the help of Bill, who was in China, the two of them redesigned the guts. The exterior doesn't change. The guts of the steam engine changed to build on his 20 years experience at Cater. And then we started up the tooling again. So we're not going to get our first samples of our first steam engine until August, which means that talking about stuff that we're going to do down the road, we're very focused right now on getting the Royal Hudson out. We're very focused right now on getting the D10 designed, which is the next steam engine. In terms of doing a CP Pacific and all the other models that we have on our list, we are going to get to them, but we got to focus right now entirely on the existing steam models, and we don't want to just sort of promise too much immediately that we're going to have trouble delivering. Is the Pacific on our list? Yeah, so it means we are going to get to it. It's on our list, but in terms of like in the next near future, we got to focus right now on the Royal Hudson, and we got to focus right now on the D10. But getting that, we don't want to bring out our first North American steam engine because we'll actually have a British steam engine out first, 2 British steam engines out first. But our first North American steam engine, we're known for models that look good, but we're also known for models that run like Swiss watch, and we need to make sure the model runs perfectly. So we are not going to. I know we promised a whole bunch of dates for those steam. We will push those back by a year or two if necessary to make sure that they run perfectly. So this Royal Hudson's got to be able to pull, whatever it is, 6-8 passenger cars up a moderate grade. It can't be just a shelf can't pull anything.
All right. And Brian Becker recommended the THNB SW9. And Diego wants to know, what is the status of the New Haven EP5?
The EP5 is being designed right now. The EP5 is actually being designed jointly by our engineers at the Rapido factory and by an engineer here in North America. They're going back and forth. I can tell you right now that last night I sent the pantograph designs from our North American engineer to the factory because they normally speak directly, but they're having trouble with the FTP. So it's progressing. Once we have the 3D designs finished, we will officially launch the EP5 with product numbers and pricing. We don't want to do that until we've got the 3D designs totally finished. We'll probably do a 3D print, where now that's generally what we do now for most of our models, is that we do a 3D print initially just to make sure everything works. Sometimes the 3D print will be very simple, but the EP5, we're certainly having issues because the massive power trucks interfering with the fuel tank, not the fuel tank, but that box there. I'm not sure what it is because I'm not an EP5 expert. And the pilot, so it's a challenge. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So you can expect an announcement in the next probably 2-3 months.
That's great. I think that's going to be a huge home run for you guys. I know a lot of guys in the Northeast in our area are going to go crazy, absolutely crazy for that. So
you know, our FL9 was very successful, and we've become known, apart from being the New Haven, Bill is a big New Haven fan, and I became a New Haven fan because I'm a turbo fan, and the New Haven actually the turbo was designed for New Haven back in '67. So we've been known as New Haven modeler, but more than that, Rapido is known for doing oddball prototypes. So things like the GMD1, it's unique. It's weird. A lot of people say it's ugly. I say it's ugly, but it's beautiful in its ugliness, right? We had the turbo train as well, the N-scale turbo train. We're known for those oddball prototypes, but we do them out of love, right? So they end up doing well. I think people really sense our love. And here's actually, you can see right here. This is one of my HO scale turbos. And I'm just in the process of finishing up all the modifications, to make it to, because we didn't know what we were doing back then. I say it was just like a one-man show back then. Dan had just started, so I was adding in weights into the nose. I added weights into the stacks. I added on grab irons. I'm adding on all sorts of extra grills. I'm doing this to my turbo, right? It's all. Are you
gonna be reissuing an HO?
I can say that there are plans to
great.
finally do it justice in HO. Because honestly, it was 2008 when it came out, 2006 and 7 when we designed it. The Rapido was me, person, not Janet, and Dan, and that was it, Dan Garcia. And I know, the sound supplier said, "Do you want back EMF?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What is back EMF?" Like, I didn't understand the stuff that I don't now. I didn't realize that the gearing for high speed didn't work well for low speed. I didn't realize that the single axle design was going to cause too much drag, so the train wouldn't run well. There's so many things that did wrong on that turbo that I would love to give it a second go. And it's been sold out for so long. They're going for something on eBay now. So it'll soon be time to do it properly.
Yeah, I think it will be a very good seller, especially in HO. Janet wants to know if you will ever manufacture women's shoes.
Yes, Janet.
Chris Ward, can we get Rapido Go Train? Athearn is not proto. Rapido would kill it. Maybe the new control car.
Okay, so here's the history of that thing. I was in England doing this PhD, which I eventually abandoned, and actually I sent in an E-Series sleeper as my thesis, right? I said, here, it's our first passenger car. That's my thesis. I was in England, and back then in the days of Usenet, before all the forums online, there was a group called rec.models.railroad, and Athearn just brought out their Go cars, which were based on the LA version. And they weren't accurate for Go, and I was very upset. And the response I got from a lot of people was, just be happy that this is painted in Go colors. And so I started this Canadian Model Trains Yahoo group. It's called Cam Model Trains, which is still going today. This is September 2002. Because I felt that there was no voice for people who wanted accurate Canadian models. And actually, I started Rapido with the first model was a resin LRC coach kit, Bombardier LRC coach kit in 2004, because of Athearn's Go cars. So Athearn, I actually owe them a debt of gratitude. We're friends with all the guys at Athearn now. I didn't know them back then. But I owe them a debt of gratitude because I started Rapido because I couldn't get accurate Go Transit cars. So that's the background to the story. But the truth, Athearn has sold so many gazillions of those things that I don't think that we'd be able to sell enough Go bi-levels to make it work. Maybe the single level cars at some point, but the bi-levels, which are the ones that everybody wants, there've been too many sold on the market. So it's a situation where most people are happy with those cars. And for us to bring out and say, you've already got 12, come buy ours at twice the price because they're more accurate, it wouldn't fly. Sometimes you can do that. When the case of FP9, another manufacturer brought out an FP9 that we weren't happy with. Another manufacturer brought out F7s, painted as FP9s. So there was a real question, why are they bringing out an FP9? We sold a lot of FP9s, like a really, really large number, because we managed to tell people, look, this is what an FP9 looks like. If you want an FP9, this is what you have to get. because the other ones just aren't good enough. So in some cases we can say, yeah, the competition has already done it, but we're going to do it better. In other cases, we have to say, or the RDC is probably another example of that, right? The last RDC was tooled 15, 16 years ago. So our RDC, we could say this is much better than what the competition does. But for the Athearn Go cars, to us to do new Go cars, I think a lot of people are happy with the Athearn cars. It's not a market for us to compete. And honestly, there has to be a real, like, it's got to be something that one of us here at Rapido really desperately wants in order to take that kind of risk of competing.
Gotcha. And Willie, I'm not sure what this means, but maybe it's one of your videos. His favorite video is the Rapido Apartment E from the UK. So he just wants to let you know on that.
APTE, not apartment. Let's show them the APTE that's in your office. I don't think it has the joint modules in. So the APTE is an incredible train. It's called the Advanced Passenger Train Experimental.
There you go.
Not got joint modules on, but maybe you could just sort of, it's missing, we call it, they're called, the diaphragms are called joint modules. This is our first British train, and just like the turbo train in HO is our first North American train, powered train, we chose the most difficult train we could possibly do in the British market for our first model. It's articulated on these trucks. And it tilts on curves, and the cars spread around when they go around tight curves, so it can handle an 18-inch radius curve.
Really? Wow.
It's the most challenging model we've ever made, but it won Model of the Year in the United Kingdom. So it gives you an idea that if we were to bring out the turbo train today, it would be smoking. It would be amazing, because that is what we do when we have a difficult train to make, when we know what we're doing. Right?
That's good.
2 years development time for that. But it was, I'm glad he likes it. I'm really, really, really proud. The APT was an experimental train, so there's actually a bank of equipment in one of the coaches, and we've got it, all the lights flash on all the different computer banks, right? 1970s, you ever watch a show, like, have you ever watched Doctor Who from the 70s or Star Trek from the 60s, and everything's flashing, right? So the APTE was so 70s that I felt that I needed to have flashing lights. And one of the engineers from the train, Kit Spackman, who helped us with the project, said to me, no, the only flash in there didn't work properly. I said, Kit, we got to have flashing lights on there. It's a 70s train, and you have massive computer banks with those spinning reels on it, right? I love that. So we made it, so it drives along, and you see all the little winky lights on the side of the train. It's a great model.
Well, Willie can watch it all day. There's a bunch of others requests. A GP40TC. The best oddball is Santa Fe 212-12-2 from Curtis. Amtrak Roar turbo liner.
Okay, was that Gordon? Gordon, are you sending in turbo liner requests? It's got to be Jordan.
No, that was Brian. Okay. Brian for a turbo liner.
Okay.
And then
you're paying people to send turbo liner requests.
Yeah. And then
I'm going to talk about this. Jordan's just walked in there. Say hi to Jordan. Jordan.
How's it going, Jordan?
I'm gonna respond to the turbo liner thing. I think is your finger covering the camera there? Oh. So I would love a Roar turbo liner. Being a fan of all things turbo, I would love a Roar turbo liner. It only really ran in one corridor. Yes, it ran occasionally out west, but
30 years.
But it ran in one corridor, right? So it was really a Hudson River Valley train.
Where did the FL9s run?
They ran in a more populated corridor. All right, so if we can do the Roar turboliner at some point, we will. But the issue also is we're finding that Amtrak is not a huge seller, even when we do an accurate Amtrak engine. The F40 did really well. The F40 did well. But the FL9, if you compare the New Haven sales to the Amtrak sales, we hardly sold any Amtrak at all.
Right.
Then after the fact, a whole bunch of guys wanted it, and it was sold out. Right? Yeah. But we sometimes have trouble with Amtrak. I think Amtrak modelers have very much in mind what they want, and we know they keep on telling us. We bring out our Phase 1 F40 in Phase 2. They're going to buy it in spades. But you can't just slap Amtrak on anything and think that's going to be a successful model. because it's a challenge. The number of guys modeling passenger trains seriously, and this is apologies to all you Amtrak and VIA modelers out there. I am a VIA modeler. Is we are still a minority. Passenger train modelers are still a minority, and for most people, a passenger train is eye candy that goes around their freight layout from end to end, doesn't do any switching, just stops at the station, and the guys don't care if they've got an accurate F40 or an inaccurate F40 on there. I know people are now screaming, oh, how can you say that? But let's face it, it's true. One of the things that I've tried to do since starting Rapido, being an avid passenger modeler, is really advocate for passenger modeling. And I don't just mean a pretty passenger train to go around your layout. I mean model somewhere, if you're starting your layout now or you're rebuilding part of your layout, that focuses on passenger operations. So if you've got a major station online, give yourself a commissary building, give yourself a place that a through train can leave a sleeping car and a coach for that station, right? Give yourself a baggage express so that you can actually do passenger switching. My layout is based in Spadina Yard, downtown Toronto, 1980. It's the biggest coach yard in Canada, and 95% of my layout operation is passenger switching, because that to me is it's awesome. It's timetabling, it's switching, it's making sure that your train is the right length, the right types of cars, right number of cars, the right amount of power for your train. Passenger modeling is just as interesting as freight modeling, but you can't just take a freight layout and throw a passenger train in it and say, well, this is boring, just running the passenger train round and round, right? You actually have to layout that you have to design something in your layout to make passenger operations interesting.
Gotcha. Charles wants to let you know his wish list would include a GMD GP38-2 with Spartan cab. What about SDL 39 from Diego? How about modern day Long Island Railroad? Will there be a rerun of the LRC cars?
The LRC cars face a very similar issue to a lot of our old tooling. The tooling that we did before about 2014, we found that let's just say that we were using a middleman, and the middleman was not the most straightforward guy. Let's put it that way.
Right.
We top quality tooling, but what we got was actually very poor quality tooling, and we found that a lot of our molds are damaged from those old projects. So, for example, that mid-train dome car that I showed you there, we've relaunched it recently. Even though we announced it 2 years ago, it was on hold because the molds are just not workable. And we're now retooling that a car that we tooled in 2011. We're tooling it again. Obviously, it's better quality construction. We've made a lot of improvements, but we had to retool it because the molds were just junk. The LRC cars are in those junk molds. There are issues with those molds that would preclude us from just easily doing a rerun. Same thing with most of our Supercontinental line. A lot of people have asked for a Supercontinental line diner. We are working on one, but it has to be tooled from the ground up. We can't use our old molds for it. However, there have been some interest from a certain full-size railway that really wants us to do an LRC again. So if the full-size railway says to us, make an LRC, we will retool the LRC. And that means
gotcha. And I'm assuming this is asking on the EP5. Will it operate on overhead wire? I'm not sure which he's referring to.
So the EP5 being electric engine has overhead catenary. And the plan currently is to have pantographs that go up and down by DCC and to have a switch to allow overhead operation. You realize
really?
there's only about 4 people in the world who are going to actually operate from the overhead, but we want to accommodate them.
Yeah, it's I don't even know where people could get the pantograph, the catenaries.
I personally love, we call it in the UK, we call it knitting. I love seeing a layout under catenary. There's something about it. If you go to Rick Abramson's layout in Connecticut, and you see the New Haven running, he's got brass EP5s running under the catenary. Oh, it looks so amazing. It's really, really, really stunning. I wish there was an easy way to do catenary with that would not only be strong enough to support the pantographs pressing up into it, but also be bendy enough so when you reach in and you accidentally knock it over. But the problem with catenary, obviously, it's very fiddly to put up, and then it's very fragile. But that stuff looks great. I look forward to seeing videos on YouTube of someone running our EP5 under catenary, because that'll make my day. Really will.
Well, Jack will be the first. And Reed, any plans on possibly making the F40PH-2C an HO?
At this point, no. But we're taking our F40 plans one at a time. So we've just tooled up the MPCU cabbage, which is a rebuilt F40 as a cab package car, and we've tooled rebuilt Phase 1 F40s with the ditch lights and the larger fuel tank. And those are next. The order deadline is September 15th, I think. So we're making those next. And then we're going to look at what other F40s we can do. We've got the F40 tooling. So is that one, Josh, is it the lengthened one or no?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, the lengthened ones are difficult because that's all new tooling. And the issue is we have had mixed success with commuter-based stuff, mainly because our stuff is really, really high-end, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier of passenger trains often being eye candy. So, you know, if the guys have a limited budget, if they're going to spend a lot of money, they're going to spend it on that super detailed freight car or freight engine, and the passenger train is just eye candy. So I don't know how well our super detailed, fairly higher price model works with commuter agencies. I can tell you we are working on a commuter locomotive. If that commuter locomotive does well and really does well for some of those other commuter agencies, then more commuter stuff is certainly possible in future.
That's great. And Tom really appreciates Jason being straightforward about the old tooling. That explains a lot about why some older models have not been rerun. Brings up a question, has there been enough interest in the New Haven cars in N-scale to keep them in the N-scale passenger car market in the future?
Oh, absolutely. We did very well with our N-scale Busby Bradleys, and those molds are at our new factory, so we could do another run later on. And the 8600 cars, as far as we know, have been very well received. I mean, it's still early days yet for the 8600s, which is the silver fleet of New Haven. We are committed to New Haven in both HO and N. So if we bring it, like the FL9 was an example, we brought it out in HO now and N. The turbo train, as much as the guys in New Haven models of 50s are loath to admit it, the turbo train is a New Haven design. And the first, it was designed between New Haven and US DOT and Pratt & Whitney or United Aircraft. So that's New Haven in N-scale. So we are committed to more New Haven in N-scale, absolutely. If we bring it out in HO, if it does well in HO, we can do it in N-scale. So the parlor cars do fairly well in HO, the silver fleet parlor cars. So if the N-scale 8600 cars do proportionally as well as the HO 8600 cars, then we can do the parlor in N.
Gotcha. And Willie loves starting up a LRC engine, and he loves it and wants to let you know. And then one of our last questions is George. Ask Jason when Rapido will be producing the TTC CLRV, Toronto Transit Commission Canadian light rail vehicle in HO or other scales.
Okay, let's just put it this way. When we did a 3D scan of the TTC bus, we did a 3D scan of another TTC vehicle that was parked next beside it on rails. So that's as far as I'll take it right now. Let's put it that way.
Okay, that sounds good. And Jason, listen, you've been on for over an hour, so I think even though the questions are going to keep on rolling in, we should probably let you get back to work and designing some great trains. And before I let you go and all the customers out there, I do want to show you the Rapido section. So Jason made a very good point on the Rapido trains, basically where you should get your pre-order in, right, Jason? So make sure, because it's very hard for a manufacturer to judge quantities, and it's becoming a built-to-order thing. So if you go to TrainWorld.com, we're taking pre-orders on all these Rapido engines, and you just click here, taking back orders, and you see they're coming out with a lot. We still have a lot of in-stock items.
And we have that new product announcement coming into this month, a big one.
Okay, very good, very good. And again, these are a new announcement, the SW 1200 RS. That's going to be very hot, so make sure you get your pre-orders in. And basically, the N-scale turbo train, if you haven't seen it and you're in N-scale, this is a brand new announcement, maybe like a week or two old. These are going to be like some of the hottest N-scale engines or turbo trains out on the market. It's only
And if
been
you
done.
order by September 15th, everyone gets a 5% early bird discount.
Okay. And so make sure you go on to trainworld.com. We're taking pre-orders. Jason, I want to thank you so much for joining us, for opening up your factory facility doors and doing a tour of the bus. That was wild. A lot of people went crazy. You got to see the comments. They can't believe that you were showing and driving the bus, and your enthusiasm shows. So Jason, thank you very much. And guys out there, everyone, thank you so much for joining. And again, you could shop online at trainworld.com for all your Rapido trains. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take care.